If you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Kind of similar to the mistake thing. It's just keep going. You'll get there if you keep moving forward every day. The route's going to look way different than you thought it would be, but keep progressing forward, and you will eventually land at a great place.
Welcome back, everybody, to our Ladders and Leverage podcast, where we break down real estate investing, syndications, and the mindset it takes to build financial freedom from the ground up. So today, very excited, we have a powerhouse guest, Nic McGrue. He is the founding attorney of Polymath Legal, and Nic is one of the go-to legal experts in the syndication world, handling everything from deal structuring and real estate transactions to business formations and contracts. He's helped clients raise capital to acquire or sell over $2.5 billion. Wow. And he's one of those rare people who can make complex legal stuff make sense for us. Nic earned his degree from Pepperdine University, just like you, Marissa Buss. Woo-hoo! And he focuses on business, entrepreneurship, and real estate, and went to earn his LLM in taxation and financial services.
Oh my goodness.
Very smart. And he's admitted in both California, Washington, and he's a tenure professor at business law, teaching everyone from undergrads to MBA and law students and how to think entrepreneurs or think like entrepreneurs and structural deals in the right way. So we are beyond excited to unpack this journey and talk about common mistakes that syndicators make and dig into how to protect your deals and set yourself up for long-term success. And without further ado, Nic, welcome to Ladders and Leverage, man.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. I'm excited for a great convo we're going to have.
Absolutely. I mean, Nic has been with us from the beginning. We got introduced to Nic by our mentor, Vinny Chopra.
Yep.
And he has done from our first syndication to we're in the process of doing one right now. So, Nic, before we get too deep, I got a serious question for you. Do attorneys intentionally make documents confusing just to make sure we still need you? Be honest. We can really handle the truth.
So I'll give you the truth. I'd say attorneys probably are not. At least I don't try to make the documents confusing, but I will say our lawmakers make the laws very confusing, and therefore the documents are just going to be confusing because, bad input, bad output. That's what I'll say. So basically I'm saying it's not our fault.
I like that. True politician, just pass the blame.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, cool. So let's dive in, Nic. So can you share your background and how you got into securities law, syndication, and real estate?
Yeah, definitely. So kind of just how I got into the business real estate industry altogether. I've always just been fascinated by buildings. And so when I got to law school, most law schools actually, they train you to be litigators, fighting in court. And so I went through the first year and I was like, I really like the skill sets I'm learning. I like how the way I think has changed. But I don't see myself fighting in court all the time. I'm just not really a fighter for the most part. And so my second year, I took a class called Entrepreneurship in the Law. And that was geared on teaching us as lawyers how to advise entrepreneurs. And so part of that program, they also had a lot of real estate programs as well. And so I started taking those classes because I was like, yeah, this is the stuff I want to do. And so I kind of knew early on in my legal career that real estate is what I wanted to do. And one of my very first clients actually was a family-owned real estate company. They had, I think, over like 2 million square feet of commercial real estate space throughout the West Coast. And so I was doing kind of all of their legal stuff. But that was mainly just helping them with operations. My first syndication actually was for a movie. So not even real estate related. Somebody being in LA, somebody's like, hey, I've got a script. I need about $600,000 to make my movie. I need to raise capital. And so the first one we did was for a movie. And then my second one also was not real estate related. I had a business client there, a winery up in Santa Barbara, winery country. And it was a family-owned winery. And they hadn't been the most business savvy, so they need to raise some capital. And so we sold off a small portion of that to raise capital so they could make renovations and do a lot more stuff. And actually ended up, after we did all that, it worked out because I started seeing that winery on TV and stuff. So I was like, good, they're back in good shape.
Nice.
So it wasn't actually, I had done those two in about probably 2011, 2012. And it wasn't, I think, until 2014 or 2015 that I did my first real estate one. And so I had a client who also was a good friend, and she had amassed a whole bunch of single families. And so she had like 30 or 40 single families. And it was like, this management is ridiculous. Like, this is so much work. At the time, I was quite a bit younger too. And so I was living in an apartment building, and I was like, my apartment building is like 40 units. Why don't you just buy that and then I'll manage it? Kind of joking, but also trying to get away to have my rent lower. And she calls back maybe a month later, and she's like, hey, have you heard of this thing called syndication? I found an apartment building. And I'm like, oh yeah. And then she's like, but it's like 150 units and it's in Dallas or something like that. And I was like, oh, that's not going to help me. But I was like, yes, I can help you with the syndication. And so that was the first real estate syndication I did. And that client ended up doing probably 2 or 3 more deals that year. And I was like, yeah, I actually really like this syndication stuff. Before, I thought that syndication, the capital raising, was going to be a portion of my practice and is primarily real estate and business. But then as I did more of it, I liked it a lot. As you guys have alluded to, and as we'll probably discuss here, it's very complex. So it's a much needed thing. And I was like, this is a really good niche. And so, yeah, probably since about 2017 or so, it's 70-80% of what we do now.
Wow, that's so cool. Look, babe, we could get into the movie industry or wineries.
That might be a little bit more, I don't know, fun, interesting.
We can buy that $8 million property in Hidden Valley for our equestrian and do a syndication on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
There's no money in that.
Oh, that is so funny. So then how did you link up with Vinny? You remember?
Vinny, it was a client that I had done syndication with. Actually, no, Vinny was the client I'm talking about. He partnered with her on a couple deals.
Oh.
And then I'd worked with Vinny with that client. And then Vinny was like, oh, I like working with you. And so I started working more on Vinny's individual deals as well.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's
That
awesome.
is so cool. So who makes up a majority of your clients? Is it syndicators, developers, others, or a mix?
I'd say overall it's syndicators. There's cycles, but I'd still say overall it's real estate multifamily syndicators. But there are seasons where I'm heavy in development, or seasons where I'm heavy in laundromats. So it varies, but I'd say overall multifamily syndication is the majority of what we do.
Okay, laundromats. This one over here is smiling because she's always wanted a laundromat.
I mean, now I have laundromats on every apartment building,
Yes.
so it's kind of fulfilling that need. But mobile home parks was my other one that I really wanted to get into and haven't yet. So
Yep, we've done those. We've done RV parks. We've done recreational sites, like all sorts of basically anything you need to raise capital for. Syndication can be the vehicle that you use for it.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
So then let's segue into this. So can you walk us through the difference? Because this took me a long while to really grasp and understand. What's the difference between a 506B and a 506C offering?
Gotcha. So the biggest difference there is going to be what your investors look like and how well you know them. Essentially, so what you're talking about is exemptions from registration. If you're selling a security, you've got to register or have an exemption. And so in real estate, because our timelines are quick, registration generally is not going to work. Also, typically not necessary as well if you're doing like a single apartment building. So 506B and 506C are some exemptions from registration. And 506B basically says that you must have a pre-existing substantial relationship with all of your investors. And so people are saying, well, what exactly does that mean? Well, pre-existing means that you knew them before the deal was on the table. And then the substantial part essentially means that you understand whether they are accredited or sophisticated. So accredited means that if we're talking about an individual, they make $200,000 or more, or they have a net worth of $1 million or more, excluding their primary residence. Or if we're talking about spouses, we up that $200,000 number to $300,000. So basically accredited is you're a high net worth or a high earner or a high net worth person. And so that's what the SEC makes as a distinction as a lot, because essentially they look at it and they say, okay, well, if you're accredited, yeah, we don't want you to get scammed. But if you're accredited and this investment doesn't work out as well, you're going to be able to weather that storm far better than somebody who's not accredited, because we presume that you're either earning a lot or you have other assets that can come and fill in where what you lost. And so with that, the SEC, if you're taking in accredited investors only, they'll give you a little bit more leeway, or there's a bit more that you can do. So with 506B, we're saying, hey, you can have an unlimited number of accredited investors, but you must have a pre-existing substantial relationship with all of them. But in addition to that, we'll allow you to have up to 35 unaccredited but sophisticated investors. And so then a lot of people are like, okay, what does sophisticated mean?
Yeah.
And if I were to give you the real answer, I could say, I don't really know. And I don't think the SEC knows. And I think they do that by design.
That's how I feel.
I think, so this goes back to what I said. I think they do it by design because I think the SEC has gotten hip that people are fairly smart. And so if you say, don't do this and don't do this, people will say, great, I didn't do those two things, but I still ended up where I wanted to. And so I think the SEC keeps it somewhat purposefully vague so that they can evaluate each situation.
Okay.
But I do have an understanding, or at least a guess of what it would be, or at least what I tell clients. As I say, okay, if we're looking at somebody sophisticated, we're basically trying to figure out, can they look at the PPM and the pro forma and the documents? And is it foreign language to them, or does it make some kind of sense? Can they look at an investment and understand what their own risk profile is? And see, does this make sense for my situation and how I like to invest or not? So we're trying to see, do they really ultimately understand what they're getting into? And so we look at sometimes their education or their work experience, or maybe have they invested in multiple syndications before, then they're going to understand these a bit better. Or also if you say, hey, I don't have any of that, don't have experience, not the background, not the education, not the investment, we can say, all right, well, if you have a financial planner or a financial advisor, their knowledge can be used to make you a sophisticated investor.
Yeah. So I have a few questions off that alone. You dove into a couple things I want to talk about, and I appreciate it. So going back to accredited investor, now, if you're married, I know the rule is that it's $300,000. What if your spouse doesn't work? Can they qualify under the $200,000?
No.
Not if you're investing as spouses. Now, if you were to invest as an individual, as separate property, then you're saying I'm an individual and I'm making $200,000 or more. But if it's going to be part of community property, then we're generally going to need to have that as the spouses together at that $300,000 number.
I hope you didn't tell anyone that, buddy.
No.
Don't be messing up my accredited versus sophisticated investors in my deals.
I was curious because, a lot of this, maybe your spouse doesn't work, so why would they have to qualify? This is my rationale under that question is...
No. The answer is no.
Okay. Good to know. I didn't know you were also a attorney in SEC law as well.
In the last 20 years, there's some things that you don't know about me that I have done, and that might be one of them. It's okay to not know everything about your wife.
Yes. So then a couple more follow-ups on that. So how do you explain the general solicitation rule to like a new syndicator?
Yeah, so basically, if you're dealing with like a 506C, then you can do general solicitation. If you're doing 506B, you cannot do that. And so by general solicitation, what they mean is that you're reaching out to people that you don't have that pre-existing substantial relationship with, and you're trying to see, will they invest with you? And so if you're trying to reach out to people that you don't have a pre-existing substantial relationship with, then 506B is not going to be an exemption that you can use. If we're talking about one under Regulation D, we're talking about 506C. There also are other exemptions that will allow for general solicitation. But yeah, general solicitation basically means you're trying to get people to invest when you don't have a pre-existing relationship with them.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, if we were doing one where you could do the solicitation, that's a
506C.
506C is because we haven't done that one yet. We've been just doing 506Bs.
Right.
So if you do the 506C, is there more steps than we are doing right now? Do you have to register that
Yeah, I'm curious about that. Like, is it because you do the blue sky filing for the
Mhm.
506B, and that's kind of basically the only registration with the SEC, is my understanding, for a 506B. But then when you're doing a 506C, what is that? Do you register each investor individually with the SEC?
No, so for on your end as the operator, it shouldn't be dramatically different. So one thing is that the blue sky filings are done on the back end, and yeah, we do those with whether it's a 506B or 506C deal.
Okay.
A filing that's done before that, there's two. One's called Form ID and Form D. Those are filed with the SEC, kind of even before you get to the blue skies often, and you'll file both of those whether you're doing 506B or 506C either. I'm trying to think for the difference that you would feel. I think the main thing, if I'm thinking off the top of my head, the main thing would be that you have to get a third party to verify that they're actually accredited.
That's right.
Oh,
Whereas
okay.
with 506B, we can do it. The law says you have to take reasonable steps to verify their financial status. And then the SEC has gone further and said that if you're doing a 506C deal, self certification alone is not reasonable steps. So with 506B, I've worked with you. We have a long questionnaire that they're going to fill out, and that's how you kind of understand
Right.
what their financial situation is. And them signing that and saying this is true. For a 506B, assuming we don't have other information to show it's not true, that is taking reasonable steps. But with 506C, having them fill out that questionnaire alone without more, the SEC has specifically said that's not reasonable steps. So what you've got to do, I always recommend to do third-party verification, where they
Yeah.
have a lawyer, an attorney, or a lawyer, a CPA, a financial advisor, and they're gonna either look at their tax returns or finances and say, okay, they meet the definition of accreditation. And then that lawyer, CPA, financial advisor is gonna write a letter and say, this person's accredited. You also could, as the operator, you could say, send me your tax returns, send me your balance sheet. But I tell clients not to do that just because one, that's more work for you. And also you're dealing with sensitive information. And the other thing is if you have a third party do it, let's say that you review it and you look at something incorrectly and it's wrong. And so you think they're accredited, but they really aren't. If the CPA does that, you have a letter from the CPA and you can say, hey, SEC, I took reasonable steps. I got a letter from a CPA and they told me they're accredited. I had no reason to believe that CPA was lying. Whereas if instead you try to do it on your own and you are going too fast and miss something that would show they're not accredited, if the SEC comes looking and they realize, oh, this person's not accredited, and they say, what did you do to take reasonable steps? And you say, I looked at it, then you're going to have a problem. Whereas if you say, I got a letter from a CPA, a third party was looking at this, it wasn't me that messed up, I had no reason to not accept this letter, that's going to be much stronger. So
Oh,
yeah, I'd say
okay.
the big thing that you have with 506C is that you have to have that additional step of verifying their financial status.
Yeah, because we actually signed up for a new investor portal through Appfolio, and they have where I can turn on and get a third party
Mhm.
accreditation through them. So if I wanted to on whichever deals, I just turn it on and say you have to go through this. So
Yep.
that's interesting that's kind of the only. I don't know exactly how theirs works because it's through a third party, but I don't know. I haven't used it with anyone yet because we're just doing the 506Bs, but
S-
that sounds like then it's not as difficult as I thought it
Yeah,
would be.
I thought that I felt the same way you do. I thought it was a lot more complicated.
Yeah.
So based on, us that we've been doing 506Bs, would you recommend that we start doing 506Cs
Well,
so we can start
but
advertising?
you could advertise, but then you can't take any sophisticated investors.
I do got a spin for you.
Mm.
Oh,
So there is a way. Now, for your guys' deals, probably not just because of the timeline, but the timeline works, there's potential. So here's a new thing that you can do as of maybe about a year and a half ago. You can start a deal as a 506B deal. And then if you stop raising under the 506B, you shut it down for 30 days, and then you reopen as a 506C offering.
Mm.
You can then at that point only, though, you're accredited only thereafter. About a year and a half ago, before that, they'd say, well, if you're raising for the same thing, it's the same deal. And 506C allows advertising, 506B doesn't. So you're going to have a clash there. Whereas now they said, if you treat it, you have one offering, you shut the 506B down, wait 30 days and reopen it, then we'll treat those as two separate offerings and not a violation. So for your deals, just with the timeline, that may not work
that'd
because
be
you have
hard.
that 30-day pause.
Yeah.
But for other deals, like especially with like development, for instance,
Yeah.
you don't need all the money up front.
Yeah.
And so sometimes we'll do a 506B, get in that up to 35 unaccredited investors that you have a pre-existing substantial relationship with, and then we shut it down and they have enough money to keep them busy for a month. Then we reopen it as a 506C. Now they can advertise and get in accredited investors that they know or that they don't know.
Oh, interesting.
So we could technically, let's say we know we have a certain amount of sophisticated investors up front, do that for 15 days, and then we could turn that into the 506C and then advertise after that, potentially.
Yeah. We don't really have that issue when we're done raising in 4 days, but if we didn't, hypothetically,
Well,
yes.
and as we grow and we want to do bigger deals, we're going to need more funds.
But I'm thinking that 506C really isn't that much more difficult, and we already have the capability of the third party accreditation. So interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah. And so back to the original question, if though outside of your unaccredited investors that are repeat investors that you want to keep, you guys, I'd say, are ripe to be a 506C. The reason is that I typically say you should start out as 506B. And again, it depends on your unique situation, but a lot of times your investors, initial ones, are going to be the ones that know you or have some relationship with you. But now you guys have enough of a track record, because that's what I always tell clients. Is they're saying, should I do 506B, 506C? And I say, part of it depends on what you think your investors look like, but then also just think about it. At least I know for me, I'm generally not going to invest in somebody that I don't know that doesn't have deals that they've done in the past. I want to see, what have you done in the past?
Right.
And so if you're on your first deal, I'll say good luck, but I don't want to pay for your education. If you're a friend, maybe.
Yeah.
But if I don't know you, I'll say, come back to me on deal 3. Let's see how that went.
Yeah.
And then maybe I'll invest. And so, you guys have enough deals under your belt now to where you have that track record and you can show people that you don't know, here's what we do, here's the success we've had. And so, I usually tell clients, do your first at least 2 or 3 as a 506B and 506B deal, get a track record, get some experience, and then maybe switch to a 506C. And again, this is not law that I'm telling you. This is just practical advice that I often tell clients.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I have a question, and it's not on your podcast question, so sorry. Here we go. So what's really the difference between doing a fund and doing just one deal? Like one syndication with one building? Like what is the real, and what are the intricacies of that to do a fund versus, hey, this is one property for syndicators, right? And for people who want to invest, like what would they want to watch out for versus like investing in a fund versus investing like in this one building?
Yeah, so if we're thinking about a traditional fund, essentially we're saying, hey, invest into this bucket of money and I'm going to find a bunch of deals. I don't know what those deals are, but I'll find deals. And when I have this bucket of money, I'll deploy it towards that. And if these deals give me money back, I'm going to share that with you. So I'd say the big difference, especially from the investor viewpoint, is they're really investing in the fund manager essentially because they don't know where the money is going to be deployed to. Whereas if it's a syndication, typically there's going to be an identified asset. We know what it is. I know what my money is going towards. And so the operator will have their own underwriting. But let's say it's a market that I know, well, I can do my own underwriting because I know exactly where the money is going towards. And so I have a better ability to kind of stress test it and just vet the deal because my deal is more specific. With a fund, you might outline the types of deals, you'll outline what your buy box is, but at least not all of the assets of the fund are identified when somebody's investing. So there's a lot more trust that they're putting on the fund manager as opposed to a syndication.
Interesting.
Yeah, I know we've been talking about a fund or a little bit.
Yeah, we've gone back and forth on it. But yeah, I think before we were just like, let's wait and see. And then it's just easier to do. I think it's easy to do a syndication when a building comes up instead of trying to say, oh, we're buying this building. And then, hey, we might buy these other buildings. And this is what our criteria is to buy. But we haven't purchased them yet. I think it is easier to sell when it's like, here's the property, here's where it is. especially until we start selling.
Yeah. And then when people do a fund, is it literally you're getting the capital into your account and it's just sitting there until you find the deal?
Yeah, that's the other thing.
That's another challenge. That's a challenge that you on the operator side. So thankfully now bank interest rates are at least something.
Yeah.
Whereas they were 0.01% for like a decade.
Yeah.
Now at least, so there's two ways you can address this. One, you can do what's called just take capital commitments. And so I might do $100,000 capital commitment, and you say, great, you're committed for $100,000, but I don't have a deal, so I don't want to take that money in and have the clock start ticking. And so you might say, great, Nick, we'll take your capital commitment and we'll reach back out to you when we find a deal, or we'll do a capital call. Essentially, is what you do. You do a capital call when you find a deal and need the capital to deploy. If you do that, I always recommend to invest or to clients to at least, even though you're going to have money just sitting there, take like 20% of it. Just because if I tell you I'm going to give you $100,000 today and I give you nothing, and you come to me 3 months from now, my world may have changed dramatically, or I might have found another deal or something. Whereas if I've at least invested some, I'm going to be a little bit more incentivized to make good on my capital commitment. And yes, it is a capital commitment. So theoretically, depending on how it's worded, you might be able to sue me for that. But you're not going to want to sue an investor. You're never going to get any other investors. So if they don't invest, it's just a loss, essentially. And so I always say, if you're going to do the capital call route, at least have them invest part of it. And yes, it might just be sitting there, but you want them to be literally invested so they can meet their full capital commitment.
I think with that though, too, like say you buy one building and you have the capital deployed for that, but then you're still collecting in that fund, then you then have this capital call, right, for the extra funds that you're going to need. How are you paying returns to everybody? Like, you have to then have so many different calculations because it would be based on the contribution dates. And that just seems like, for me, a bookkeeping nightmare to be like, oh, okay, well, you're from day 1, but you're from day 90. So now I've got to pay. I mean, I guess eventually they would all get on the same schedule, but in the beginning, it would be pretty hectic.
Yeah, I tell clients to just have an investment window, and everybody in that window is going to be the same date. So we might have it open for 30 days. Yeah. And if you invest on day 1 or day 30, you're all starting the same date. Because like you said, otherwise that would be an accounting nightmare.
Yeah.
On any day.
Oh my gosh. I was like, that's just a headache.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then can you explain, because this is another, I feel like a lot of this is gray area, but what a pre-existing substantial relationship really means?
Yeah, so pre-existing. So again, the pre-existing, just before my fund is launched, before my syndication is launched, I knew you. The substantial is I understand whether you are sophisticated or accredited and the reasons why. And particularly if you're sophisticated, I understand your educational background. I understand some of your investments that you've had in the past, and just how financially savvy you are or not. So yeah, you don't necessarily have to go through and do a questionnaire and have them fill out a whole bunch of stuff, but through your talking with them and getting to know them and building that relationship, part of that you should be talking about what have they invested in the past and what does their financial picture generally look like. And so yeah, at least I feel, again, we said it's gray and there's not a true definition, but I say you should know whether they're accredited or sophisticated and the reasons why they meet whichever one of those. And so with that, I would feel comfortable saying that you have a substantial relationship with them.
How about if one of my investors introduced me to their friend? Does that count?
If let's say that it's an investor on a prior deal and you don't have a current deal, and they introduce you and you talk with them, you have coffee, discuss previous deals, discuss their investments, and now you kind of know what their financial acumen is. I'd say that doing that stuff would make it substantial. And again, as long as you got to know them and got that information before the deal that you're trying to have them invest into, then that would be a pre-existing substantial relationship.
Makes sense. Yeah. Okay. Now, social media and marketing, because I know this can be where people can potentially, get in trouble.
Danny.
myself. I've had to remove some posts after some
Compliance.
Marissa. Yeah.
Sees the post and is like, what are you posting that? You cannot post that. What are you posting?
So I'm asking our attorney here, not you, because I know you know this answer, but for our listeners, if we're raising under a 506B, what exactly can and can't we post during the raise?
I would say the safest way is nothing.
Nothing.
So you can't post inspection day and a video of you going through a building.
Yeah, and that never happened. So good, right?
Yep. That got deleted.
So it's better to be safe than sorry during a deal. And I know this now. Don't post anything until you're done or you close of escrow.
Yeah,
exactly. That's the thing you want to avoid, because you don't want it to look like you're soliciting. And so if your deal is still open and you're still raising, there's the argument that you're soliciting. Even if you're not saying come invest with me, you're getting people interested and hoping that they're going to call you, probably so they'll come invest with you. Or at least that's the story that can be told. And so if you're doing 506B, particularly during the acquisition phase, I'd say post nothing.
Yeah.
If you want to post afterward, when it's acquired, when you're no longer raising capital, well, now you have a strong argument to say, this is not a solicitation or offer, because I'm not offering anything anymore. The property's purchased. We don't need any more capital. And so then maybe talking about posting things about how the operations are going or things like that to build your pipeline for the next deal. That's something you could do. But I would not post during the 506B at all.
Okay. And then I notice some syndicators, I follow a lot of syndicators on social media, and I'll see them make a post about, we're not saying they have a deal raising for currently, but just in general, contributions. Oh yeah, we just made, $240,000 worth of contribution. Is that okay to post on social media?
You mean distributions?
Excuse me. Distributions.
I wouldn't do that.
Really?
It's not absolutely wrong. Here's the difficulty with, and what I tell all clients with posting. If you had me do it, or if you had me review it and I made it how I want it to be, my disclaimer would take up your whole post. And so the difficulty with posting online is that, you're getting snippets, and it's easy to argue that something's misleading because you're getting like at most a 90-second snippet about a very, very complex thing. And so obviously there's going to be a lot that you leave out, and that's where you leave room to have issues. It's not so much necessarily that the posts themselves are bad or wrong, but they're not complete. And so then it allows people to say, oh, well, I saw your video. You give $250,000 every month. So if I invest with you, I should be getting a portion of that $250,000 every single month, because that's what your video said. And maybe this just happened to be the very good month, and maybe other ones are like $100,000 a month or something. And so, that's where the issue comes into. It's not so much that it's absolutely illegal or wrong itself, but it opens you up. And for the value you're getting, most people are not looking at a social media post and like, oh my God, let me do a couple of clicks and send $100,000 right now.
Yeah.
They might look at it and get interested, but they're not going to invest. And so I always tell clients, your goal on social media is to pique their interest to where they're going to want to talk with you more.
Right.
And then you have a conversation where you can give the full disclosures and get to know them more and do it more the proper way.
Maybe they know that because they only put it on their story.
Yeah, because they
it
don't
only
want
lasts
it left
for 24 hours.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So, but you know what? I give myself some credit here. I really post on like what you were just saying, just to get people interested. I post the operations of my projects, and I show before and afters, and that's really mainly what I'm doing. I'm not posting, oh, we just made $1 million or whatever it is. It's operations directed, and I feel like that's the engagement I'm going for.
Yeah, and that's generally okay. Again, I would say if I had my idea, I'd say do not post. And again, I'm not saying you're wrong.
Danny's trying to be an influencer in the syndication world,
Gee, you're taking away all my fun.
He loves social media. He wasn't on it forever, and then finally gets into real estate, and then now he's like, trust me, the fire station, the guys just have a field day with Danny. It's hilarious. What did you get last time at the Bundy Awards? He got like best influencer or something. It was hilarious. I mean, these guys are relentless. Okay, I have questions. So have you been to trial with a syndicator or anything like that?
I have not. We
Ooh.
don't litigate at all.
Okay.
Purposefully. And part of it is a very different skill set. Transactional versus litigation is very different. I'm trying to think. I don't even know of clients that have like fully gotten sued. I know of clients that have gotten threatened, and that's unfortunately going to happen in any business.
Over what?
I know of clients that
Usually?
have gotten threatened. I know of clients that have had SEC complaints filed against them, and the SEC reviews it. But thankfully, so far, I haven't heard of any actual like ramifications.
Oh, good, Nick. You're still our lawyer then.
Yeah.
What are the complaints or the stuff that you're talking about in a general?
Yeah, curious.
So here, and this is what I always tell people too. And it's a joke that I make that clients don't like. I say, you're going to spend a whole lot of money for me to make these very long, complex, scary documents, and we hope we never look at them. Because if we're looking at them, it's probably because there's either a lawsuit going on or like a complaint going on. And so the ones that I'm thinking of, it's just a deal maybe didn't turn out as well as they had wanted and well as they had projected. And so the investor was upset. And so they made a complaint to the SEC. And then the SEC said when they get a complaint, they're often going to look into it. And so they wanted to see the documents, the filings, and all that sort of stuff. And thankfully, we had everything buttoned up. And so there was it was an inconvenience, but it didn't go very far at all.
More like, hey, we projected 20% and you only gave us 5, or you didn't give us any.
I was going to say, we have a couple investors who have told me that they've invested in other syndications and they're on like year 5 through 7 and still have not seen any returns. These are usually out of California, I mean.
And unfortunately too, in this part of the market cycle, I am seeing clients having to do like capital calls because their debt's running out, the timeline's running out, or maybe they didn't lock in their rates, and so when the rates change, and so right now I'm seeing a lot of deals that are not quite penciling out how we anticipated, just because the market and other variables are looking a little different than they did a couple years ago.
Well, yeah, I think that people, and I mean. Don't understand, but when you buy a building and we were in the 2 to 4% interest range, I mean, no one projected interest rates to go up as fast as they did over that 18-month period. But how would you not think that there's no way you're going to be in the 2s and 3s for your projections in 2 years? Like that was obviously because of the pandemic. And so that's what I've heard is a lot of people just, they didn't have the income to support a new loan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've had clients that are having to do, they're ceasing, at first they start out ceasing distributions, and then sometimes they end up having to do capital calls. I remember maybe a year or two ago, I had a client where when it first switched, they said, I was cash flowing like $200,000 a month, and now we're losing like $20,000 a month because the interest rate switch was that dramatic. When you're talking about multi-million-dollar loans,
wow,
it can be a big difference.
Yeah, that's why I won't do any floating rates. Like when we refinance, it's fixed because then at least I figure if interest rates move so much, right, you could at least sell it at the end if you couldn't refinance. But if you're stuck in a loan and it's moving on you while you're in that period, like that's very difficult to navigate. So at least you're locked in. You're like, okay, this is the cash flow for this amount of time. Okay, if we have to sell, maybe we're not selling. Like if I can return the initial investment, I feel like that would be better to people than, oh, hey, we're just in a hot mess right now and can't. Yeah. That was actually this guy who's local. I wonder if you know him. He owns like that podcast that the commercial real estate agent had on, and he bought the building in Oxnard that we didn't buy, or Ventura. What was his name? I'll have to send it to you. But he owns I don't know. He was saying he's grossing over $90 million a year in cash. Yeah, I was like, whoa. Wow. But he on that podcast said he will never take a floating rate loan, and he generally takes fixed rates 5-year minimum for any of his loans. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I'm like, this guy's a billionaire. I'm going to listen to him.
Even though people are even getting hit by that 5-year minimum, though, because a lot of those loans are coming due, and when they got it, they're at 2 or 4, and now to refi, it's 7 or maybe more. And so, the financials are looking a lot different.
Yeah,
Wow.
especially if
Yeah.
they don't do a value add play like we do. Like we do
Mhm.
significant value add. So then you have that room because your incomes come up so
Yeah.
much. But if you were just like, oh, we're just going to
Yeah.
do, simple rent increases over time. Yeah, you could easily get caught in the
That's a
middle.
good point. I never thought about because our margins are so much larger because we're doing the big value add. But a lot of people are buying deals and they're like,
No,
oh, I'm going to increase the revenue through adding, Wi-Fi and cable.
Yes.
Mhm.
Especially out of state and not in California. Like California, you're landlocked, right? So then you have it's easier to raise rents versus if you're in Texas, Arizona, Nevada, you have
Mhm.
so much land. They put up their apartment buildings so fast that if you raise someone's rent, $100, well, they're going to go over to this apartment building over here. And you didn't make it where your apartment building is so much nicer than all the buildings around you. Even more, they're going to leave. Because what's the difference? They're like, well, I'll just get up and move. And especially when their budgets are that tight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
What do you say some of the most common mistakes that new syndicators are making around compliance or just in general
social
deals?
media posting.
That's pretty much it. I'd say number one is not knowing that you're selling security in the first place.
Okay.
I get a lot of people, they're like, oh, I'm gonna do a joint venture and I have my 25 joint venture partners. And I say, okay, what is everybody doing? And they say, oh, well, I'm doing all of this. And then they're just writing a check and they're just writing a check. And I say, okay, that's not a joint venture partner. A lot of people, so they think that a joint venture or other ways they want to call it are a substitute for setting up a syndication or fund or whatever offering properly. So number one is not knowing it's
Mhm.
you're selling a security. And then number two, it's related to social media. It's not understanding what exemption you're going to use, what you're going to use early on. Because I've had situations where it's before they came to me, but somebody was posting about, hey, we're going to be raising for this new project. It's amazing. And then I talk with them like, yeah, we want to do 506B. And I say, you can't anymore. You just said we're raising for this. Reach
Oh.
out to me if you're interested. You just solicited.
Yeah.
And so now you made it to where you don't qualify for that exemption anymore.
Wow. Good to know. Good stuff to brush up on before you start doing it. Beyond syndication, what other services does Polymath Legal provide?
Yeah, so we work heavily in real estate, securities, and business, and so most of our work is all kind of intermingled. So we help with real estate acquisitions and sales. We help with the capital raising side, so securities, and then also we serve as outside general counsel to some companies as well. So companies that have kind of a regular, ongoing legal need, but don't necessarily want to hire a full-on attorney. We have various packages that include, regular meetings and checkups and certain amounts of services. And so handling the various legal stuff that comes before a business.
This is kind of a hot topic for everyone. AI is moving fast. And I imagine you can just go on ChatGPT and say, hey, I need a PPM drafted for this.
Oh my gosh. Dear Lord.
So what are you seeing in that realm? And
That's
do you
nuts.
see anything changing, technology changing what you guys are doing in the future here?
So I think that day could come. But as you guys have seen dealing with securities, they're very, very nuanced. And AI doesn't understand that nuance at all yet.
Yeah.
Even with contracts, AI can get you like general stuff.
Yeah.
But I still look at AI as it's a tool for if you know what to do, it can do some of the grunt work or whatever for you, but you still need to have that expertise or knowledge to prompt it the right way, to ask the right questions, or also to realize sometimes I was like, yeah, that's just wrong. Understanding. And I've even had situations where we're doing kind of just the working with businesses, and just like a week or two ago, I had the other side, not our client, but the person they're working with, sent a contract, and I said, did an attorney draft this? And they're like, I don't know. And I was like, I'm pretty sure this was drafted by ChatGPT because it's written in a way to where it looks like it's accurate and looks like it's what you want. But I was like, this is way off. This is not what we need here. This is like, and even with it, I was like, some of the clauses they had in there were like super detrimental to them, and they are the ones who sent it to us.
Oh my gosh.
And so I'm very biased because of course I'm going to say, yes, you need an attorney.
Yeah.
But I will say that when I see the contracts that are written by ChatGPT, if I were like a very unscrupulous attorney, I'd be like, let's pounce, because I could just tear somebody apart because I can say, oh yeah, let's just make this small tweak here and this small tweak here when it's very meaningful and big stuff.
Yeah.
And ChatGPT doesn't necessarily know that or account for that just yet.
Well, and I mean, I could see that being, if you got in trouble for something and you go to the judge and you're like, oh, well, who drafted your PPM? And you say Chat GPT, that's probably not going to look good on your end, right?
Yeah. So yeah, especially with investors when we're looking at
Oh
yeah.
for
Oh my
negligence.
gosh.
Yeah.
And so they'd say, well, yeah, a reasonable person, when you're taking in millions of dollars,
Yeah.
you're going to spend some money to have a professional
You'd hope.
review this.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd hope.
Oh my
But
gosh.
you actually made me think of something. If we're thinking about lawyers that litigate, there actually have been multiple cases, which shocks me that, well, I guess some people with their lawyer jokes wouldn't be so shocked, but I'm like, there's lots of or multiple cases where a lawyer submitted like a brief or something to a judge and they're reviewing it. And when the judge gets it, they're just not going to take your word. They're going to look at your citations. And multiple times where the judge says, this citation you gave me is non-existent. You're using a case that is made up and doesn't exist as the support for your argument. There was one, I forget what state it was, but they had to like make a rule that says if you're using ChatGPT, you have to check its sources, which is like,
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's like, I mean, obviously AI is going to take over a lot of things, but there's just some things that it can't. I mean, they can't take over an operator like what we're doing, Marissa and I. I mean, but it's a great tool to help, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm using it all the time.
Oh my gosh.
Emails and
So our kids last night, this is hilarious. Our oldest, who's 14, was like, yeah, Dad talks to Chat GTP like it's his best friend. And I was like, I know, I've heard him. I'm like, she's like, yeah, he doesn't ask questions like you just ask questions. He literally is talking to it like it's his friend and he's on the phone. And I'm like, I know, don't do that. He says you have to talk to it like that. And I don't think it's true. And it was so funny though. I was dying. I was like, this is hilarious.
For me, it's a time-saving tool is what I use it for. Mainly.
Yeah, we use it for like our internal business stuff. We use it a good amount like marketing and other things like that.
It is great for that kind of stuff.
To like help with that sort of stuff. We don't use it on legal stuff.
No.
But yeah, for some of our business functions, kind of again that kind of elementary or the introductory stuff or the starter stuff that you'd pay like an admin or something. Like my admin is probably doing the work of like 5 because we have a lot of systems and random GPTs set up that kind of knows how to do things. So it definitely has some value and can help a lot. It's not good at law just yet though.
Yeah,
oh, dear Lord.
I could see that.
It's hilarious.
All right, before we get in our final 5, do you have any other questions?
No, I have thrown my curveballs. Okay.
All right. So at the end of every episode, we just do a quick final 5. Give us a quick little short answer. So what is one book that's made a big impact on your life or career?
Yeah, the book I always recommend is Limitless by Jim Quick. It's a self-help book, personal development book. And as I've read more, it's not dramatically. If you read a bunch of those, they're all kind of talking about the same thing. But I like his spin on it. And particularly for him, he suffered a brain injury when he was like 5, and so he wasn't good at learning, and so he had to learn how his brain works so that he could function kind of how he wanted to. But with that, he learned how all of our brains work. So he has lots of really cool tips on how your brain tricks you and how to go around to make sure you're not tricked by it. So yeah, that's a great personal development book.
I'm gonna check it out. Thank you. I'm always looking for a new book. And what is one habit that's helped you succeed?
This is going to be the cliche, but mindfulness. I used to say meditation. I don't quite meditate as much, but I definitely will have some sort of slow time, some mindfulness time. Particularly, I think, especially for entrepreneurs, we always have a billion things we're doing.
Oh my
and so
gosh.
for me, it was so hard
true.
to just slow down or wind down. So having that slow time, whether it's meditation or even just a walk or whatever it is, just having some time set aside to be still, to be slow, to let your body just have a break for a second.
That's great. That is great advice right there.
Yeah.
I need to take
that. We're both like, we need to do that.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm going to read the book and then I'm going to work on mindfulness next.
Oh my God.
What's your biggest lesson learned in real estate or law?
Biggest lesson learned, I'd say this is not one you want to hear from your lawyer, actually, but I'd say
Oh.
mistakes will be made.
Mhm.
Mistakes will be made,
Yeah.
but as long as you keep moving forward and kind of navigate through that, then it's just part of the process.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying making mistakes on legal documents, more so just in real estate and business and
No.
entrepreneurship. Part of the journey is you're going to make a mistake, correct that mistake, then you make a new one, correct that. Wait, I get your documents good to go.
Oh, good. Glad to hear it.
No, 100%. 100%. I mean, shoot, same here. So if you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Kind of similar to the mistake thing. It's just keep going. You'll get there if you keep moving forward every day. The route's going to look way different than you thought it would be, but keep progressing forward and you will eventually land at a great place.
Love
So
that.
true.
Yeah, that is, yeah. And then lastly is just how can our listeners connect with you?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok at Nic the Lawyer, NIC the Lawyer. And then you can also reach out to the firm. It's Polymath Legal. So go to POLYMATHLEGAL.com. And on there, you can call us, you can message us directly, and you can also schedule a free 15-minute discovery call with us as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I will also put in the description how you can get a hold of Nic. I do want to say thank you, Nic. You've been huge part of our success. And
and he's held my hand.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I feel like the first three, well, because you don't do them, like, it's not like you're then doing it every month. So then I'm like, wait, I forget, guys. Like, do I have this? Do I do this? Like, are you doing this? And they're always, you guys are phenomenal. I really appreciate it because I definitely feel like I was like, oh my gosh, they must be like, this lady is a pain in the butt. She does not.
Not at all.
And I'm just always like, I don't know. Was I supposed to do this or you do this?
Yeah.
So you guys are amazing though. I really appreciate you.
So thank you. And thank you everybody for tuning in to Ladders and Leverage. If you have not yet, click subscribe, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Thanks, Nic.
Thank you, Nic.
Thank you.